Hello, and welcome to another tale taken straight from the heart of the Jakuls. As always, I'm your dedicated host, Lothran, and there's ever so much more to say. So let's submerge as far down as we could fall. Go grab a filling meal, settle into the perfect spot, and pay direct consideration to Grahlings Part 10, Unexpected Results. Come on, just a little more, come on. Dath tried to will the cat-like predator closer to the stunned body of the wriggler. Not to worry, this particular one had never been alive in the first place. He twitched one leg through the long, thin strand connecting his fingers to the limbs and head of the inactive body out beyond the ring. The large, menacing hunter circled its prey. Dath controlled his breaths from within the blind to obscure his location. He fervently wished his orders would stick this time in the frightened little minds of the wrigglers. If even one of the 8 of them bolted, the nets and ropes would never hold a creature this massive, larger than any target he'd ever conceived, but hopefully it would be enough for the fuel that he required. And maybe they wouldn't work even if everything went perfectly. It's such a beast. Dath checked the creature against the landmarks and the one wriggler he could see from where he was. The monster was at least 4 or 5 times larger than Murkmire, and Murkmire was larger than any of the other hives Dath had ever witnessed. It snarled long and loud as it pounced upon its prey. Dath tugged the alarm string tied to his right hand. The wrigglers emerged from their concealed dens, running for their lives, each of the 8 dragging a length of rope from one den to another. The beast, startled from the movement, slashed at the nearest wriggler, chasing after it. Yes! Dath dropped the initial lure, pulling the red-colored rope end with both hands and using his legs as leverage. This released the spring-loaded nets, all of them flying over the body of the predator where it sat, causing the ravenous monster to thrash against its newfound bindings. Dath wound as many ropes as he could around his arms, while giving the signal to the rest of the wrigglers on the other end of the winch, hopefully prepared to be a suitable counterweight against this monster. They sped and yanked on their ends of the ropes, running across the inner surfaces of their wheels, meant to pull the entire trap ever closer to the rings, while also tightening and constricting the enclosing nets around the target. Dath held for his dear little life against the amassed, lurching and stuttering weight of the monster, slowly reeling in his end of the work with each fit and burst of ever so slight gain. Feeling every centimeter of the mountainous, muscular monstrosity thrash and heave, lunge, roar, whip, and struggle about. His bones ached instantly. His limbs wanted to give up after a single tug from his incredible opponent. Dath could hear the pain in every last one of his nerve endings calling, ever so sweetly, to just let go of his prize. Dath grit his teeth with such force that some of them broke as he held his very necessary counterweight position. Dath saw the first sporadic flicker of Murkmire's light on the surface of his spilling cup of water in several days. Hold on! Dath pleaded against the will of every last part of himself that wanted to give in. The wheels spinning, the gears reeling in this horrible beast from a dozen spots cemented into the area of the ring. Just keep it together! Dath felt the rope slip from one hand, taking most of the skin of his palm with it. He took the barest second to pull thread from his mind and heal the wound, fusing part of the rope in such a way that it felt like it was a part of his limbs, as if it had always been there, making it all the easier to hold against the force threatening to wrench it from his hands with every second. The monster figured out that the closer it got to the hive, the less it could move or breathe. The contest between both forces became suddenly all the more desperate and horrendous on those involved. The sounds, the very panicked screams of the massive predator fighting for its own life, seemed designed to unnerve those working in unison to bind it to their combined wills. One of the stone gears snagged and ceased to function. Dath took another brief second to glance that way. The wriggler sat inside its wheel, squeaking in dismay while it tried to figure out what to do. Dath tugged at its corresponding string, getting it wrong the first time and having to tell that wriggler to start running again, and then finding the right length, tugged the correct message 3 quick pulls. He heard it respond with some squeaks to run off to another wheel gear and help that wriggler pull the monster into their domain. Dath almost lost his grip even with the rope acting as if it were a part of his flesh. Another wheel bent to the point where it became unusable, and still the predator was a meter or two away from the rings. The writhing, snarling monster quieted and stilled to gather its strength. Dath dropped the rope, reaching for a spear, knowing he'd not get another chance. He hurled the missile after barely bothering to aim at all, the beast in question dominating his view. As the spear landed, just then Dath resecured his arms and legs to anchor the rope. He was pulling ever closer to completing its task. But he underestimated the surge of pain, the rush of life-sustaining adrenaline, the sheer power of determination to survive. Yanked by the somehow jumping predator in its prison, Dath landed in the dirt outside of his ruined concealment. He reacted quickly, rewinding the rope around the nearest gear mount. Even if it halted the progress ever so slightly, it freed his hands to hurl first one, and then a dozen more spears in quick succession into the bleeding, towering, enraged monster now rolling itself toward the hive and not away from it. "No!" Dath shouted as the massive bulk crushed over and through a few of the wheel and gear sets close to the edge of the ring. He could do nothing for those caught under such weight and force but watch them die. Dath hurried to pick up his only blade, a small iron knife, running at and smashing wildly, flexing and pummeling megalith, dominating almost half of the zero ring. He leapt on its back, stabbing through the holes in the net a dozen times until he was thrown off, hurled far away from his target. The beast roared, a torrent of heated, putrid stench, right at Dath, as it continued to slay as many of his helpers until the net snagged on the earthen oven and held firm against that. The winch, and a few other bent or tilted wheel and gear mounts. Dath marched through the devastation, trying to ignore the dozens of bodies of his regular army, knowing he'd feel the loss of them as soon as this was done. He clambered up over the beast's head, almost as large as Dath himself was now, jabbing the cruel little blade into the flesh behind a set of intelligent, pleading eyes beneath the constricting nets. "I'm sorry, but this is the way it has to be," Dath whispered the apology, feeling every ounce of remorse that he could have ever during a kill, yet hadn't until this moment, as he sawed the little weapon back and forth through the blood-spraying neck of this magnificently powerful being, forced to sacrifice its life for his benefit. It slumped to the ground, still drenching them in a river of thick black blood. "May you prove a better selection." Dath whipped his head around to catch a glimpse of a toeless foot stepping out of the ring. From the opposite end, the hive gone, a much smaller one in its place. Merkmeyer's voice receding into concealing shadows. "Wait!" He ran towards the edge of the rings, noting how the impossible curtain of shadows refused to recede as he approached it. "Why?" Dath pleaded as he halted at the edge of the ring, feeling its hard metal surface upon the edge of his toeless foot. "A better question is, what will you do to prove the selection correct?" Merkmeyer asked Dath back from its complete cloak of purest darkness. Sir, a Grahlings shook Dath out of his memories as several more extracted the needles from his mind. This better be important, Dath commented as he stood back to his sore feet within the memory vault. Message from the summit, sir. One of Law's Grahlings. He made an incredible advancement in the rings. It will turn the tide. Dath swallowed any agitation that had been on his mind. Send word. I'm returning as soon as I can. Oh, and fetch a new batch of wrigglers. Sir? The Grahling seemed immensely puzzled by the request. Nothing too large. I miss having them around is all. Just a few will do. The guard saluted and rushed off to see to the acquisition. And so it is. Our time together has once more come to its full and complete conclusion. I hope each of you enjoyed the story as much as I have the telling of it. As always, I've been your faithful host, Lothran, and this was Grahlings Part 10, Unexpected Results. Another tale right from the heart of the Jakuls. And now we must part our ways once again. Korvoth, guide them along the proper path, back to the safety they know all too well.
Yes, sir, Lothran. A pleasant greeting and a fond farewell to each and all. Please leave all your comments, questions, and kindnesses down below. None of that awful rude or mean stuff, though. You keep that to yourself. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to help us learn, spread, and grow. Don't forget, we strongly implore each and every one of you to do your absolute utmost to stay safe out there. Good night and good luck, everyone. You'll need it. Bye-bye. See you again tomorrow for the discussion. Bye-bye.